Hi, I'm Kathy from the Delafield Quilt Company. I've got another little Halloween project to share with you, and that is going to be a table runner that I'm going to make from these blocks. These blocks are sometimes called the Delectable mountain block, or I've heard them called the Aztec block. Whatever they're called, they're actually really kind of cool to make, so I hope that you enjoy this tutorial. To make this block, we're going to need some different fabrics. So for fabric A, which is essentially this background fabric here, we're going to need 8.5 inch squares. And then for fabric B, which is the black fabric here, we're going to also need 8.5 inch squares. And then for the center part, we're going to need 16 4-inch squares. I am going to choose to go with the same background fabric, so fabric A is going to be the same on my table runner. But then for fabric B, I'm going to choose black still, but they're going to be different prints. And then finally for fabric C, I'm going to go with a couple oranges and a couple whites. So I've mixed mine up a little bit. You're also going to need about a ½ yard of backing fabric. And all the fabric that I'm using is from Art Gallery Fabrics. It's from their Sweet and Spookier collection. Actually, there's a few pieces from last year's collection. If you haven't checked this collection out and you love Halloween prints, you might want to check this one out because it is so cute. So essentially this block is made up of half triangle squares. Basically we sew half triangles and then we slice them up and we sew them back together and we get this neat look. What's different about this version that I haven't seen out there yet is I add this center piece. It's super easy though to add, and I think it just adds a little bit extra element on this quilt block. So to make one of these quilt blocks, we're going to take 2 of fabric A, that 8.5 inch square, and then 2 of the 8.5 inch squares of fabric B, and then we're going to use 4 of the fabric C. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to start with 2 squares of fabric A, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line down the center of here. And then you're going to just repeat that on the second square of fabric A. Set those aside. And then you're going to take your 4 squares of fabric C and you're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to draw a line diagonally down each of those squares. And I'm drawing that line on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, now that I have these drawn, I'm going to bring back my fabric C squares. And then I'm going to take my fabric B, and I'm going to put one of these fabric C squares on 2 of the opposite corners of the square. Just going to put a pin in place to secure those. And then you're going to repeat that on the second one, and you're doing this right sides together. Okay, and then you're going to want to sew from corner to corner on the diagonal line. And I'm going to do that for both of these sets, and I'll be right back. Okay, now that I've got these sewn on the diagonal line, for all 4 squares are sewn down, I'm just going to trim off the excess. Just going to give it a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Do that on the opposite sides as well. And then we can just press these open. Once you have these pressed, then we're going to bring back our fabric A square, and we're going to make sure the diagonal line is going between the center part here, not across the triangles that we just added. And right sides together, you're just going to place that on top of the fabric B C combo. Give it a few pins, and then repeat that with the other one. Again, your diagonal is going down the big center of fabric B. And then we're going to sew these a 1/4 inch on both sides of that line that we drew earlier. So I'm going to go do that. Right, now that I've got it sewn on both sides of the line that I drew earlier, I am just going to slice it right on the line. And I'll do the same on the other square. So now we have 4 half triangle squares, and we're just going to press these open quick. Okay, one more step before we get to slice these up. And we're going to take 2 of them, turn them so that the triangles are lined up, And we're going to sew these then 1/4 inch seam allowance along that edge that they line up. All right, then once you've got it sewn together, go ahead and press the seam to one side. I was a little off on my sewing here, so I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. Okay, so this next part is where we get to slice this up. And we're going to slice it up in 4 sections. You probably want to measure this to find out where the middle point is. I know mine is 8 inches wide. So I'm going to make my first cut 4 inches in. And then knowing that these are 4-inch sections, I'm going to do a 2-inch cut as well. You're going to repeat this with the other set too. This is where you're going to see that pattern come to light, is we're just taking the strips and just putting them on the opposite side. So you can see how you get that nice pattern. And then once you have these reversed, then you're just going to make sure you're lining up the seams, and you're going to sew each of these strips together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then once you got one side done, go ahead and repeat that with the other side. And then once you have your 2 sides sewn together, we're going to put them together. Make sure that your C fabric is the center of the block, and then we're just going to line up the seam and do a 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Okay, and then press it open, and you have got one of your blocks done. And that is how you make one of these Delectable or Aztec blocks, whatever you want to call it, with a little bit of a twist by having that center fabric in there. I'm going to make 3 more of these to finish my table runner, but you make as many as you want. Hopefully you do try this because it is a fun block to sew. Thank you so much for watching this video today. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and visit us at delafieldquiltco.com. Have a great day.